Welcome back to another episode of Southern Sorcery. Today we are joined by my good friend Corey, or you may know him as that TCG guy. He has put together this awesome deck tech for us, featuring the Sensational Spider-Man from that new extended art, whatever you want to call those, little collection of art that just got revealed last week. Especially since there's not going to be any precons in the Spider-Man set, we're sort of taking this and building out all these decks. So I went to the expert on Spider-Man himself, Mr. Corey. So we're going to let him talk about this deck today. We'll have a little dialogue back and forth about it, but we're going to go through it and talk about what it wants to do, what the theme is, what the cards are, what the heavy hitters are, and kind of just walk through how to play this deck. So with no further ado, we'll let Mr. Corey tell us about the Sensational Spider-Man and what he does.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me, and thank you for letting me talk about my favorite nerd thing of all nerd things, Spider-Man. Huge. I'm so excited for this set. The last like 5-6 videos I've done on all my stuff have been all about Spider-Man things from these spoilers.
Well, I was going to say, they spoiled it months in advance, so like, why not squeeze it for everything it's worth?
Exactly.
All the content.
And I'm just gonna literally like comb over these cards every day until I have more Spider-Man cards to comb over at some point. Or I'm just going to keep speculating on what I want, because those are other videos I've done where like what other heroes I want to see in the set, what villains I want to see in the set. And there's so many to choose from that.
Oh man, yeah, huge.
I could easily make a video a day on those and still not hit every single
I like that they are giving him his own set because the world is just so... Obviously, he's the most popular Marvel character across time, like maybe not in the last however many years with with the Avengers and stuff and Disney doing that. But before that, it was all Spider-Man. 100% Spider-Man. He was the guy as far as Marvel goes. So huge world built out for him. So like you said, dozens upon dozens of villains, tons of sidekicks, tons of side characters, all kinds of cool cards that could come out of this. Lots of awesome flavor. So everybody's stoked for it, and I know you are.
Oh yeah, there's a lot I'm hoping from this set, and I'm trying to keep my expectations as close to the chest as possible,
as tempered as possible.
Yeah, exactly. Like I don't want to. Like I could easily start rolling with this, and then in my head build up this incredible, amazing, like amazing to me set, and then it comes out, and it's like, what the hell? But I think no matter what they do with it, no matter what they do with it, I think it's going to be really. I know, right? Like
no, I think they'll do good. They did great with Lord of the Rings, so like I think they'll treat this with like they'll give it the similar treatment and take.
I hope so too. I hope so too. But I'm excited for it overall, so I can't wait. We got a little ways to wait, but here we are. All right, so this guy is the Sensational Spider-Man. So for 1 and a blue and a white, you have a 3/3 Spider-Human hero. Whenever Sensational Spider-Man attacks, tap target creature defending player controls and put a stun counter on it. Then you may remove up to 3 stun counters from among all permanents. It's an important distinction there. All permanents. Draw cards equal to the number of stun counters removed this way. So basically, the flavor here is like webbing up opponents. Like that's where they went with this one. Stunning them is just wrapping them up into webs like that. And like this is my nerding out here. How do they connect this to like the flavor of what Spider-Man is? And we're gonna see a ton of different Spider-Man across this whole set. So with this one being Azorius and stunning things and webbing things up, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it does.
I think when I first saw it, I was like, I don't really know about this guy. And then the more I like read it and the more I like sat and stewed on it, I'm like, okay, I think I like this guy. This is pretty cool. The deck basically wants to tap and stun as many things as possible, whether it's your opponent's creatures, whether it's your own creatures. Artifact, we're trying to stun as many things as we can. The deck that I built here is called Sensational Spider-Man, stunning on him because you're stunning everybody, and then we
stunner.
Yeah, right. So we want to stun as many things as we can. We want to draw cards to get to my win con. I don't think that my win con in the deck we'll go over in a little bit. I don't think this is like the main win con for the deck. Like I don't think this is what most people are going to think of as the win con for this. This is the way I went with it, and I'll kind of explain how I got there.
So we were saying before we got recording that low-key, this Spider-Man is kind of super gross with all these stun counters. And one thing Corey pointed out to me that is cool is that it's any stun counters. I hadn't really thought about it from the point of view of like, oh, my stuff that enters with stun counters on it as like a negative, like, oh yeah, this spell costs this and does that, but it comes in with some stun counters on it to kind of like make you wait to use it. Yeah, Spider-Man can get rid of those. And not only can he get rid of those, then it pays you off and draws you cards. So not only are you able to get to the cards faster by removing the stun counters, you're getting paid off to draw cards. It is maxed at 3 cards a turn, but good lord, 3 cards a turn? Like,
in blue. Like,
yeah, that's so gross.
and that's not the only way you're going to be drawing cards. Like, that's
Absolutely.
just supplemental card draw. And like the biggest payoff for what you were just talking about, having like your own creatures with stun counters from the Lord of the Rings set. It's a creature called the Watcher in the Water. So it's 3 blue for a 9/9 Kraken, and it enters tapped with 9 stun counters on it. So basically, you can just use Spider-Man to just constant, like it'll take 3 turns if you just focus on this one thing.
Right.
3 turns to get those 9 stun counters off of them, and then you have a 9/9 Kraken that does a bunch of gross stuff when you draw cards. So finding ways to abuse stun counters, not only on your opponent's stuff, but on your own stuff, so you constantly have that resource to use for Spider-Man. And even like there's a lot of proliferate in this deck. Like you might not need this 9/9. You can just keep proliferating these stun counters on this Watcher in the Water, and then you just always have a steady income of stun counters to remove. You can get creative with it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the proliferate on top of the stun counters. Well, let's just move into it a little bit. Let's just talk about, we've got a bunch of other creatures in here. We've got other ways besides Spider-Man to put on stun counters. And then once those stun counters are on, lots of proliferate effects to keep them on, so that your opponents essentially never get to untap their creatures. So just walk us through a little bit of kind of those type of effects and what you decided to put in here.
Yeah, so as far as creatures go, because a lot of creatures have some sort of effect that puts stun counters on things. So the first one that came to my head when I was putting this together was something that is in Foundations, came out with Foundations, called Grappling Kraken. So it's a landfall Kraken creature. So it's 4 blue for a Kraken. It's a 5/6 with landfall. When a land you control enters, tap target creature and opponent controls and put a stun counter on it. So you can be tapping and stunning one thing a turn. Ideally, I say ideally because it doesn't always work that way. But
you
just
might,
being
you
able
might
to
miss a land drop, but
miss a land drop here and there. But like at least hopefully a couple turns in a row, you can at least tap. I mean, granted, this isn't coming out in this kind of deck with just mana rocks for ramp.
Right.
Probably not coming out until turn maybe 5. But ideally, again, you want to be dropping lands down. You're just going to be able to tap stuff down with each landfall trigger. And then we already talked about the Watcher in the Water. Another one from Lord of the Rings. There's a lot of Lord of the Rings cards in this deck. Monstrosity in the Lake is a 4/6 for 4 and a blue. When it enters the battlefield, you can pay 5. If you do, tap all creatures your opponents control and put a stun counter on each of those creatures.
Oh, Jesus.
So this with a proliferate effect.
Oh man, yeah, that's terrible.
Tapping everything down multiple turns, or you play this and then you pay the 5 and then you play a land if you have the Grappling Kraken out, and then you're just putting more stun count. The way you're able to just compound stun counters in this deck is ridiculous. So that's another one that is pretty gross.
Pretty powerful.
Shackle Slinger is another creature, came out in Thunder Junction. So 2 and a blue for a 3/2. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, you can choose target creature and opponent controls. If it's tapped, put a stun counter on it. Otherwise, you tap it. So I mean, ideally, you're looking to find stuff that's already tapped. Maybe it's something that already. Maybe there's something that alreing has a stun. Yeah, right. Something that already has a stun counter on it.
Elf decks are going to hate this.
Oh my god, so many decks are going to hate this.
So many.
So yeah, that's going to put stun counters on things. I butcher this name all the time, but it came from the newer Eldraine set. It's like Sharai, the Numbing Depths.
Sharai,
with that. Merfolk Wizard, so when it enters, tap target creature opponent controls and put a stun counter on it. And then whenever you tap one or more untapped creatures your opponents control, you draw a card. So adding more card draw for tapping your creatures, which you can do with Spider-Man. So
so you'll be drawing off a charade once a turn from Spider-Man, as long as you're attacking.
Exactly. So just tons of ways to get supplemental card draw and stun counters on, which is really good. And then beyond that, some spells. There's a couple of sorceries. Actually, there's quite a bit of sorceries that tap a creature and then put multiple stun counters on it. So freeze in place. Is a sorcery. It says tap target creature and opponent controls, put 3 stun counters on it, and then scry 2.
Oh, that's so good.
For 2 and a blue. Like there's your 3 stun counters,
for 1 and a blue. Yeah. No.
For 1 and a blue, excuse me. Yeah.
Super good.
And then impede momentum is the same thing. You tap target creature, put 3 stun counters on it, scry 1. So not scry 2 for this one, but still you get to scry.
Yeah.
And you're putting 3 stun counters on things, which is really good. And then another one, tranquilize. For another 1 and a blue, tap target creature and opponent controls, put 3 stun counters.
I didn't realize there were this many spells that did that, because you're looking at stall out. Does the same thing. Like, wow, that's
stall out does a similar effect. I think that was out cold. Tap up to 2 creatures and then put a stun counter on each of them, and then you investigate, which is really good. Succumb to the cold. Tap 1 or 2 target creatures and opponent controls, put a stun counter on each of them. Oh, and then tap the trespassers is another instant with one of my favorite mechanics, which is voting.
Yeah.
I love voting cards because I'm a dirty expropriate player.
I put expropriate in my Doc Ock build, so
I love it so much. I have an artist proof for that somewhere around here. But
cool.
anyway, so yeah, this one for 2 and a blue, each player secretly votes for a creature you don't control. Then those votes are revealed for each creature with 1 or more votes. Put that many stun counters on it, then tap it. So just so many ways to get stun counters and tap things.
Yes.
And then you got enchantments, things like Kidnap, which when it enters, tap enchanted creature. If the gift was promised for this, because it has gift a card, you put 3 stun counters on the creature and you control that creature.
Yeah.
Like so many things. Lost in the Maze does this. Meat Locker does this. Like there are so many. I didn't think there was this many.
I didn't either.
That put stun counters on things.
I didn't think that either. This there's a lot. And there's a lot of creatures that do it. I didn't realize that there were I guess there's more tapping, but there's a lot that still tap and then add to, I think. Grappling, Kraken, like you mentioned, several others as well. So it's like not only are these cards available, they're available in every kind of card, creature, instant, sorcery, enchantment, etc. So it's like
redundancy is key in this deck, and you have plenty of it. And that was the thing was so this originally for me was a Hilda of the Icy Crown deck. Mm-hmm. And I built that deck specifically for the win con that we have in here, which we'll talk about later. When this came out, and we talked about this before we started recording. When Sensational Spider-Man was previewed, immediately my brain went to this build, and this was the shell that was the Hilda deck.
Right.
And then I took out a lot of, because Hilda just cares about creatures being tapped. She doesn't really do much with stun counters, but coincidentally there was a lot of stun counters in this build because it taps.
Right.
Lots of effects
tap and then put it, and then it stays tapped. So
exactly, and especially for the card that I have for my win con, I want things to be tapped specifically, so it made sense.
Right.
So changing out Hilda into Spider-Man, it was just okay. I don't need this chunk of mass tap effects, and I need more proliferate, and I need more stun counters.
Right.
So I go on a Scryfall and do the query to have stun counters, and then go down to color, and then. Literally, it's like, okay, cool. I can put almost all of these into here, and they're going to work.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have to really think too much about it. And like you said, they're in everything. There's creatures, there's sorceries, there's instants, there's enchantments.
Yeah, so tons of ways to get there.
Yeah, I think there's one. Oh no, the artifact there's one artifact that cares about stun counters, but we'll talk about that later. But yeah, it's a very, I don't want to say it's an easy deck to build, but it does, there's a good amount of resources out there for you. So sometimes that's hard. Like you go to build a new commander and it's like, oh, well, this kind of does this unique thing. And it's like, well, energy's a good example of like, okay, here's this energy thing. And it's like, well, there's only these cards. Yeah, there's no other cards. So having a plethora of options is really good to do a build out like this. Well, we can just move on into we've gotten to turn 5, turn 6, turn 8, somewhere in that ballpark. We've got things tapped down. We have a board state. What are we looking for to try to get the win here? What ways are we looking to close this out? Yeah, so there's one main win con, and then there's the secondary win con, which is beat face because everything's tapped.
Well, yeah, everything. So just get in there and deal a bunch of damage.
Yeah, so there are a lot of large creatures in here. Those Krakens are pretty large, just kind of by default. Right. I have a couple of flyers that have decent power toughness. Mm-hmm. There's definitely things in here that you can just, if everything's tapped for the most part, and most things will be, you can get in with combat damage.
Oh, for sure.
But for me, and the reason I built the Hilda deck to begin with, my win con in this, and I can't say I ever won with this, but boy golly, did I try. And I'm gonna keep trying. And it thematically works here is Mjolnir Stormhammer.
Okay.
So I have a few tutors in here. I have things like Fabricate. I actually think that's the only tutor that's in here for this. But Fabricate's going to look for this. Mjolnir here is a 4-cost artifact. When it enters, you attach it to target legendary creature you control. More than likely, it's going to be Spider-Man.
Sure.
Whenever equipped creature attacks, tap target creature defending player controls, put a stun counter on it. Then Mjolnir deals damage to each opponent equal to the number of tapped creatures that opponent controls.
Yeah, that seems insane.
Boom.
That seems crazy.
You just gotta go up against a token deck that has 750 plant tokens,
and they're all tapped.
And you tapped them all with the what was that creature earlier? Monstrosity in the Lake.
Yeah, pay the extra 5 and everything is tapped. Yeah,
everything is tapped. They should all have stun counters on them. You put down Mjolnir, you swing with Spider-Man, and now everyone's dead.
Yeah, yeah. You just have to declare the attack, and then everyone's dead. Like,
Exactly.
because
It doesn't even have to. It doesn't even have to go through.
You don't go to combat. You just declare the attack, and then okay, everyone's dead.
Yeah. So here's the issue with this though, right? First of all, everybody hates you already because you've tapped all their stuff constantly.
Sure.
So everybody's already like, everyone's like, player removal is the best kind of removal. Second, the second you fabricate for Mjolnir, people start doing the math. They're like,
sure. Like, we're getting ready to take this much damage.
They're like, oh no, Donnie's got 25 soldiers, and Corey just tapped them all down.
Yep.
Like, all right. So we're gonna spend the rest of this turn cycle trying to kill Corey.
Yep. That's what they got to do. Yeah.
Or someone holds up counter magic. Like that's the unless you have this in your opening hand, or unless you naturally draw into this, which you do sometimes when you fabricate for it. I think that's one of the downsides to most tutors, where you have to reveal.
Yeah, they see it coming a mile away.
They can see it coming a mile away.
Sometimes they can't do anything about it. Yeah.
Sometimes they can't. Sometimes you hit Magical Christmas Land, and Mjolnir does come down, and it does some serious damage. But yeah. So for me, once we hit that point in the game, I'm looking for Mjolnir if I don't already have it. I'm trying to do as much damage based on tap creatures as I can, and that's kind of the thing I like about Spider-Man, is it's going to help me dig into that naturally. Yeah,
because you can, like, again, drawing you up to 3 cards a turn, especially like on his own, he's only doing 1 stun counter a turn. So like the most you could do, you kind of want the stuns to stick around as part of it, at least more towards the end of the game. But yeah, with all of these other ways and with proliferate, you can just proliferate and then take a counter back off, and then if you've got other ways to so you can keep adding the stun counters and keep everything from being untapped. So speaking of which, then you said it'd be great to have this in your opening hand potentially. What is a good opening hand? What is someone who wants to just build this out based completely on your build? They want to build it, they're going to get it, they're going to start piloting it. What are they looking for? What should they pass up for what?
Self-reflection is one of the best things you can have, right? And I have learned over my 10 year of playing this game, I am terrible at keeping opening hands that are awful. I'm the 1 land Soul Ringer. I will do it every time. I'm like, I'm going to draw into a second land. It's going to be okay.
It's got to be there. It's got to be there.
It never is. So that being said, in a perfect world, come at me with pitchforks if you want to here. I think 3 lands is a solid starting point. I would like a mana rock of some kind, whether it's Soul Ring or Arcane Signet, Azorius Signet, one of those things. Thought Vessel, like give me at least 1 mana rock, because we're in colors that are notoriously bad for mana ramp. And then a solid spattering of low cost creatures, I guess, and spells like Azorius Guildmage is a 2-drop, Flood Pit's Drowner is a 2-drop, Harrier Strix is a 1-drop that when it enters it taps a permanent. Like there's and we didn't go over some a lot of the other things in here, but there's a lot of just incidental tapping in this deck too.
Yeah, Grateful Apparition, when it deals combat damage, proliferate. That's another 2-drop. So there's definitely some, like you said, Harrier Strix, that's a 1-drop. There's definitely some low cost creatures in here that you can get out. Thrumming Bird.
And then I think if I don't have Mjolnir in my hand, I would like to have Fabricate in there. So I mean, if I'm building my perfect hand, right, I would like a Plains, an Island, and let's just say
Command Tower
or Hallowed Fountain or whatever it is. Like give me something that taps for whatever, for both. I would like Harrier Strix in there. I would like maybe Grateful Apparition, and then give me a Soul Ring, and then give me maybe one of those like Impede Momentum, Freeze in Place.
Sure. Something that sorcery speed. Can amplify Spider-Man pretty quick. The good news is that Spider-Man is only a 3-drop.
Exactly.
Right? So he's not terrible to get out. You could get him out turn 2 potentially if you had a Soul Ring in hand, So, turn 3 at the latest, which is good, especially if I can't get him out until turn 3, but I can get my Guild Mage out on turn 2. So like you've got a fairly low curve, so you've got some stuff.
Or like even give me give me one of those, like give me Freeze in Place, and I'll cast that before. So let me set up a turn before Spider-Man. Turn 2, I play Freeze in Place, tap something down, put 3 stun counters on it. It doesn't matter if they remove one on their turn, because once I play Spider-Man, I guess
once you attack with Spider-Man, then
once I attack, so okay, maybe like 2 turns in advance or whatever. Let me get some stun counters on things, and then I can start using Spider-Man to put some on there, and then maybe I get a Proliferator or something in there.
Yeah, sure.
Give me a Dreamtide Whale, give me that what do we say? Grateful Apparition,
Yeah.
something to keep those stun counters on there, and then I can start abusing those. So
yeah, I mean, card draw on the commander does make this a little easier to build. I feel like commanders that don't draw cards on their own, you have to really try to focus on like card draw being in your opening hand. You really need that card draw. This lets you sort of focus on other stuff than like, I need ramp and card draw in this opening hand, where that sometimes struggles a lot with other decks. Man, like I said, a lot of decks are going to hate it. A lot of elf decks are really anything that relies on tapping your creatures for mana, tapping them for whatever, are gonna not like this at all, because they're gonna have stun counters on them, and they're not gonna. I can't use my Priest of Titania. Oh no!
Nope. Sorry, buddy. Oh, you can't attack with the 50 plant tokens you made from the Avenger of Zendikar next turn. Whoops.
Tough.
Sorry.
Well, Corey, thanks so much for coming on and doing this. This deck is fun. I haven't obviously played it against anyone yet. I did test it out in Moxfield. Not sponsored, but Moxfield is fantastic. You can check it out on either of our Moxfield accounts. I'll link those in the description down below. Be sure you like and subscribe. Go check out Corey's channel. Give him a sub as well. Good dude, good content. Does a lot of 60-second deck tech. So if you like your information in a quick, fast hurry, he is your guy. So go check him out. Show him some love. And we will catch you guys in the next one. And we'll talk to you then. Bye.
See you later.